Hello.
Okay, we're live. Let's get the intro music going. All right. We're live. This is The Good Fight with attorney Steve and Josh. Thank you for listening. We are recording from our brand new Rodecaster Pro. It's a pretty amazing piece of equipment, as you can probably gather by now just by listening to the deepness of my voice. What about your voice? Is it deep?
Not deep enough.
Ooh, what does that mean? I'm curious now.
That's Keith Wyatt.
Oh, yeah. What's up, Keith? All right, so we're going to talk today. It's going to sound very, very counterintuitive to what we're trying to do here, which it's no secret. We're trying to get listeners to listen and maybe give us some of their business. Okay? We're going to talk today within the same realm that we talked about yesterday, which was on family law. We are family lawyers in addition to personal injury and bankruptcy. But I say counterintuitive because the topic today is we feel that divorce should be taken with the same seriousness as marriage. So what are we trying to do? Are we trying to tell people not to get a divorce? Maybe.
Well, before we even get started, let's make something clear for the record here, that just because we are family attorneys and we deal with divorce doesn't mean that we want to promote divorce.
True.
Right? We wish everybody a healthy, happy marriage
Of
that's
course.
long and prosperous, and that's what's in the best interest of the children. But we're realists as well and understand that there are situations in which a divorce is better than sticking it out for the kids.
You mean sticking it out for the kids is the primary motivator for not getting a divorce? Is that what you mean?
I think in some situations it's a big motivator.
Oh, sure. Of course. I mean, we're both married. I have 3 kids. You have 1 on the way. Congratulations.
That's not public knowledge yet.
Oh, shit. Really? It's not. It will be soon.
It will be soon.
So we won't release this until after that.
It will be soon.
Wow.
So by the time our listeners hear this,
Yes,
we
okay.
have one on the way. We don't know what it is yet.
Okay. Well, you're hearing it first on The Good Fight, everybody.
As long as it's got 12 fingers and 12 toes, I'll be happy.
Ooh, it's weird. Martian. All right, but, I think, brutal honesty, like I said at the outset before we hit record, I do want our listeners to understand that we think of divorce law on a very sort of intellectual level, on a very analytical level. So I feel like we have to look at it from every single prism that you can possibly look at it, even if it involves not getting a divorce.
And I think we have a duty to do that, right? In order to counsel our clients in every aspect of the matter, we have an obligation to think about all of the things that come along with divorce, right? And I think that our clients should understand that when we're advising them to do certain things, it's because we understand the ramifications of the decisions that they're going to make. And so a decision that they make in 2019 with a child who's 2 is going to have ramifications in, 2035, 2040, when this child's an adult and has witnessed all the things that go along with divorce. So I think that, you and I were talking before we came on the air about how this is relevant to our business, and I think it's absolutely relevant. I think that as a counselor, we have an obligation to make our clients aware that, look, we understand the emotions that come along with getting a divorce, and we understand the impact that they have on the kids and the client themselves for the foreseeable future. This is not, because the divorce petition is signed, doesn't mean the case is over. Doesn't mean that the emotions stop.
Right. Yeah, there's life-lasting effects with any important decision, marriage and divorce being one of them. You mentioned something that's interesting, which is that we are counselors at law, right? We're not therapists, but we're not therapists. So is it our job to, when we sit down with clients or even an initial consultation, to go over the sort of emotional ramifications of a divorce? Is that part of our job? Are we therapists?
I think that's up for interpretation. I really do. I don't think there's one right answer to that question. Some people may say, I'm an attorney and a businessman, and if somebody comes in and says they want to be divorced, then it's my obligation to support them in that divorce and not try to change their mind. That's one way to look at it. I think the other way to look at it is that there's a human being on the other side of the table, and from human being to human being, we're looking out for each other. And sometimes the answer is not a divorce. Sometimes the answer is a counselor, right? A marriage counselor or something like that. And so I think it really just depends on what your outlook is there. There's no, legal, ethical obligation for us to say, one way or the other.
As we're sitting here talking about this, there's actually a client that we have that came to mind, and I won't name his real name because obviously he has an interest in privacy, but I'll go so far as to say that it's a male, and he has made it very clear to us. So he got, just the factual context, he got served with a divorce summons and petition. He also got served with some restraining order paperwork that was actually denied by the court. But he has made it very, very clear to us that he loves very much his soon-to-be ex-wife, or his wife currently, and he wants everything. He wants to do everything that it can possibly take to rekindle the relationship with his wife, who, by the way, wants the complete opposite. She started the divorce. She wants to finish the divorce. She wants to be done with this. And this is a challenge for us because we don't see this a lot. We don't see situations where the client has literally told us, I don't want a divorce. I need you guys, I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but I need you guys to help me restore the marriage to my wife. And what do you do in a situation like that, Josh, where we're representing him in the capacity of, a respondent in a divorce case who, let's say, maybe his wife, wants to take him to the cleaner, so to speak. I mean, what do we say to somebody like that?
That's a tough question. I think it's one of the toughest questions. Look, divorce is possibly a one-way street. That's just the reality of the situation.
Okay. I know what you mean.
Okay. It's not necessary that both people want to get divorced. Why somebody would want to be married to somebody that doesn't want to be with them is, a different question for a different day.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary that both people want to get divorced. Now, I will say that for the most part, the people that come in to see us, our clients, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's something that they've thought about, which is good.
Right.
Right. And what I'm talking about is divorce, right? It's not, they don't just say on Tuesday, hey, I think I'm going to get a divorce today.
Right.
It's something that they've thought about for a significant period of time because I think they do understand the seriousness of it.
Mm-hmm.
In a situation like this, to get back to the question that you asked, I think that we have an obligation to explain to our client what we just talked about, that it doesn't have to be mutual, that the law doesn't require it to be mutual, and that although he may have these feelings for the other party, they're not reciprocated. And so we understand that he still has feelings for this woman that he decided to dedicate his life to. But we also understand that if he continues to blindly follow those emotions, there are going to be long-term repercussions.
Good points.
So,
I mean, because
it's a tough question, though.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think another way of saying what you just got through saying is that we can't enable our clients to think with their hearts, but rather we need them to think with their brains.
Well,
and we need
our
to give
job.
them tools.
That's our job, right? Our job is to take the emotion out of it. I think in any legal matter, we're hired to take the emotional aspect out of it and make reasoned, logical decisions. I think even greater in a family law matter where it's essentially a soap opera, right? That's what we're hired for. We're hired to take the hate and the distrust of the other party out of the negotiations, out of what our positions are.
Yeah. I mean, I have sat through countless consultations with, different walks of life, different stories. Every story is different. Every case is different. But I have had a few where the, the client, the potential client comes to me and says, I don't know if I want to file for divorce, but I'm thinking about it. And if I do decide to divorce, then I'd like to know, what the ramifications are. And so that obviously is would be our primary concern. But you know what? At the end of the day, at the end of that consultation, I tell the client, I always say, you have the right to be happy. Okay. And whether that means, getting rid of, or filing for divorce and dissolving the marriage and resolving the custody dispute or whatever the case may be, then so be it. But when I say that, I also mean, you have the right to be happy in the marriage that you're in right now. And so even if that takes therapy and counseling, and we have referrals for that, and we can refer these people to some great licensed marriage and family therapists, then that's what we need to do,
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. I think we talked about this before we came on the air, which is that's the guiding light here, right? Yes, marriage and divorce should be thought about with the same sort of seriousness, but the guiding light in both marriage and divorce is your happiness.
Right.
You get married so that you can spend the rest of your life with this person and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
You also get divorced so that you can spend the rest of your life in happiness.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because we don't see what happens. I suppose we could simply pick up the phone on or call a client that has been a client of ours in the past, maybe 2-3 years down the road, and say, hey, how's it going? Just wanted to check in with you, see how your kids are doing. But we don't. But certainly we know people who are the byproduct, maybe they're adult children of a divorce. But the point is that there are life-lasting ramifications on adult children. And so, I guess what I'm trying to say is the grass isn't always greener, right? Divorce may not it might be a Band-Aid on one's, sadness or depression, and the person that wanted the divorce to begin with thinks that, hey, if I divorce my spouse, I'm going to find somebody else who is going to give me happiness. And that might be the case, but, it's interesting because I'm not sure the statistics. Probably should have printed them out. But the point is that you see a lot of people who, are at their third, fourth marriage sometimes or whatever. And so it's like, well, what does that tell you? It's like, that tells me at least that, hey, you're not going to find happiness. You're not necessarily going to find happiness after your first divorce.
Well, I think that this is probably a conversation for another day, another podcast, whatever you want to do. But your happiness has to start with yourself. If you're looking for happiness in another individual, you're going to have some issues, right? It's the idea that in order for there to be a successful marriage, each of the members of that marriage needs to be at their best.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are unhappy as an individual, getting into a marriage is not going to make you happier.
You mean a second marriage or a second relationship?
Or just a marriage generally.
In general.
If you are not happy prior to marrying the person that you are contemplating marriage with,
right,
marrying that person is not going to make you a happier person. If you have, personal things going on in your life that is eating at your happiness, marriage is not necessarily the answer.
And to go around full circle with what we originally started with, which is that divorce should be taken with the same seriousness as marriage, meaning you're talking about before the marriage, but we can also apply that same rule to divorce itself, which was my point, which is that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And so that divorce needs to be given some serious thought before it's actually done.
It does. And divorce needs to be understood. I talked briefly about the negative connotation that we as family lawyers get about supporting divorce. Well, I think divorce itself gets a negative connotation, right? For obvious reasons.
Okay. Like what?
Well, first of all, the complications and the implications that it has on everybody's lives that go through it, right? That we've been talking about. But divorce is not always a bad thing, right? You have two people who together are not happy and together may not be good people,
Okay.
but separately may be great people and may have loads of happiness to share with the people around them. But for whatever reason, their union just doesn't, it doesn't foster that anymore. And so sometimes divorce is a good thing, right? Sometimes it's better for a divorce with children so that the children don't see their parents as an unhappy couple, but as happy individuals.
Right.
And so I think that not in all situations, but in some situations, divorce is the answer in order for everybody's happiness.
Sounds so magical the way you say it. Gosh, I mean, but I mean, so I understand what you're saying, and I think that another way of looking at it is that if there's a mutual understanding, right? And I'm not talking about just between the spouses, but with, let's say there's kids involved and the kids can see that, right? Because I you know, when you mention that, I do know a few, not a lot, but a few couples who, not through just in life in general, who have told me, you know, we're happier apart. We're better friends when we're not married. You know, we have a great relationship. Oh, my ex-wife, oh, we're great friends. We, in fact, her new husband and my new wife, we all hang. I mean, it's rare, but I've heard it. I don't know if you've heard it, but I've heard it before. So it happens, and I think maybe the reason it happens, and it's happened for this particular couple or whatever, is because they understand that, they realize that, and they can have a serious conversation with their kids about it, and their kids see it, and the kids understand it. You know, I mean, every case is different.
I mean, for me, like one of the things that I think about is it better for a kid to witness an unhappy marriage where his parents are constantly fighting,
right,
or is it better for a kid to understand that you don't need somebody else necessarily to be happy?
Right.
I don't know the answer to that question, right? I don't know. I think that there are two sides to every story, but
you know, it would be very interesting. I was going to say if, but when we have another podcast about, and so the topic I think would be the institution of marriage as a whole, and what is it about marriage? What is it about society that has created this so-called institution of marriage, and B, why, you know, maybe governments or politicians or laws encourage it, right? Like tax laws, for example, as opposed to this, is going to sound bad, but this really bad, but this idea that it's silly that people are monogamous and they're not like animals, for example, that roam the land and you know. But it's a fascinating concept, I think, if you think about it in those terms, in terms of you know. But they're right. I think it would be an interesting, and we should do some research and get some statistics. But the idea and the institution of marriage as a whole, I'm not a proponent of what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about thinking about it in that context.
I'm going to assume, without doing any research, that the reason that it is promoted is because it originates in the Bible.
Really?
The concept of marriage, it's a sacrament.
Okay. Well, I would like to do the research.
You can do the research.
All right.
I will not do the research.
Well, we're running out of time here, but this is an interesting topic. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. I think that,
Closing remarks?
Yeah, I think divorce is a very, very, it's taboo.
Very taboo.
Right. And I think that, there's this idea that because we're around it so much that we become normalized to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's actually the opposite. I think that we understand it more. We understand that it can be a tool. And we understand that it's not always a bad thing. And so does it increase the chances of us getting a divorce? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it just helps us understand the ramifications.
Okay. Well, it's great talking to you about this topic. I wish you, and I hope you wish me, a lifetime of bliss and a happy marriage.
Absolutely.
I wish you many, many children. We've stopped at 3, but
We will not even get to 3.
no?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't wait for the day that I be addressed as Uncle Steve. All right, you've been listening to The Good Fight with attorneys Steve and Josh. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.